Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Mythos Busters. I'm Sean, and with me tonight we've got a slightly reduced crew. So joining us, of course, is Ian.
Hey, hello, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. How about you?
Pretty good. I just plunked down a hefty chunk of change on a storage solution for a game that hasn't even come out yet, so I feel good about my life choices.
I know. God, we jumped off that cliff at right around the same time.
Yep.
And I got two because I got one for my Lord of the Rings cards too, so we can definitely talk about that as maybe a little bit in technical time because it's a thing. It's more money than I've spent on the game that it's for, so that's that's notable. Joining tonight as well, of course, is Nicholas. Hello, Nick.
Hello.
Have you recovered from last weekend?
Have I recovered from last? Oh, yeah. It's easy. That doesn't take much out of me, you know. Like, gaming's in my blood, man.
It's not so much the gaming, it's the staying up till 3 a.m. playing Jackbox.
Oh, that's mixed in there, too. I think we only did Jackbox the one night, though, didn't we?
Memory's hazy. And sadly not joining us tonight is Tom. Despite the fact that he is the internet, he's managed to somehow have an outage tonight, and his computer is messed up after an update, and his mic driver's not working, so just not in the cards at the moment. Hopefully, we might get a drop-in surprise sneak attack Tom here partway through the episode if he wrangles his technical difficulties. But moving on without him, the show must go on. Guys, tonight we're going to talk about some fun things. So we're going to talk a little bit about some community, some gems, I guess, that have popped up since we recorded last. We've got a couple fun news articles, including a new release preview already, which is awesome. And then we're going to dive in a little bit and talk about the lore and kind of what we think, I guess, the current, what we've seen so far in the game, what that is pulling from the lore, and as well what we've read, what we'd like to see, so on and so forth. Guys, it might be the best episode ever. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Oh, poor Tom.
Oh, God, now I feel like a jerk. Oh, terrible. Anyway, so, Nick, you were the one who kind of picked out these two little, having trouble with the word for what they are, but I guess community contributions would be a good one. Do you want to kind of run through what they are and where people can find them?
Sure, yeah. They were brought to my attention through our Discord channel, so that was great. I didn't really have to dig. They just kind of showed up for me.
Hang on, sorry. Hold the phone. Record scratch. We have a Discord, guys. So that's probably the first order of business that I completely forgot to put in the show notes. I meant to at some point, but, that's how that works. So basically what happened is we kind of had a little bit of a different vision for how we want Discord to work. So we have basically established our own Discord channel. You can definitely come out and join it as well. Now, the thing is there's also, of course, the general Arkham Horror channel. Our bent is kind of more on the community side. So this just kind of, we're going to use it for our own podcasty type purposes. Expect silliness, expect in-jokes. It's Discord. It's really fun. So it's a fair question to ask, why do we need another Discord channel? Real answer is, of course, you don't. The mod of the general Arkham channel has kind of got the mission statement to keep it really clean and pure, keep it about the game, and we totally respect that. It's not like we took our ball home and are bitter and starting our own Discord. It's just, we just had a few ideas that we wanted to explore.
Yeah, I definitely want to keep it comfortable and fun. in regards to this podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
so it seemed better to just do our own Discord for that.
Yep. So there's hopefully room in your life for both, but come join us. So you can join the Discord channel at www.discord.me/MythosBusters. And that should generate the invite for you if you don't already have it. Okay, that was that thing. Sorry, Nick. Carry on with what you were saying.
No, so all I was saying was that it was a couple of people in Discord that brought these to our attention, or to my attention at least. One of them it's from the user on Discord that goes by the handle VAtlas, and he went ahead and put together kind of a chart of published investigators in Fantasy Flight Games' Arkham Files line. So Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horror, Mansions of Madness, those sort of games. So it's all of the investigators. He goes over the games that they're in, and then the ones that we don't already know about in Arkham Horror, the card game, he speculates to what spheres, or not spheres, that's Lord of the Rings. Holy cow. I don't even play Lord of the Rings, and I'm referencing it. Which classes that they could fall into as like their main class, their subclass, that sort of thing. And it's just, it's interesting to look at and to look at all these different investigators. And
I had no idea there were that many.
Oh, I know. It's like a 3-page list. I was so surprised. But yeah, that's pretty cool to take a minute to look at. And we will have links in the show notes for these, obviously. So take a look at VAtlas's investigator chart. And then also, we found a pretty cool Arkham Horror video review from Marco Wargamer on YouTube, where he basically goes through Arkham Horror, the card game, what's in the box, and his thoughts and his feelings on it. And it's cool because he's a big Lovecraft fan and he's a big Fantasy Flight Games fan, so it's cool to see kind of his take on it. So check out that video. It's a little bit longer. I think it's around a half hour. I guess I don't have it open right now, so I'm not sure on the exact
it's like
time.
a half hour, 40 minutes, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so it's in depth. So you're going to have a pretty clear idea for what to expect from Arkham Horror just by watching that video.
But I will note that he also kept it very spoiler-free, so if that's something you're worried about, he basically he goes out of his way to not show off encounter card spoilers, so rest assured there. And there was some cool spoilers that came out of that little video, including one that I'm particularly excited to talk about, because it's she's my new girlfriend. It's new, it's exciting, it's hot. It's Agnes Baker, who is the waitress. And, like I said in the prior episode, Diana Stanley is my favorite Eldritch Horror character. I love the magic-based characters. I love the kind of the risk reward. I don't know, what's the Thrones line that Melisandre says? Magic is a sword with no hilt. I just love that whole kind of philosophy, and the Mystic class really, really speaks to me in that way. So.
Yeah, but Sean, the one thing that I've learned, sadly, about you when it comes to Swords with No Hilts is that you need a hilt on it. Like, that last Eldritch Horror game we played, oof, man.
Oh, no, I didn't die to my spells, though.
No,
I just
that's
died
true.
because the dice decided to start hating on me.
Okay, blame the components.
Yeah, it totally was, the dice. I promise. But yeah, so I was already excited for the class just on a base level, and then we've now seen Agnes, and I'm going to go ahead and read her here from our show notes because I'm oh so excited about it. So she is Mystic, of course. She has 6 health, 8 sanity, 5 will, 2 intellect, 2 kick-ass, and 3 runaway. She has the sorcerer trait. And reaction: after 1 or more horror is placed on Agnes Baker, deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location. Limit once per phase. And her Elder Sign effect is +1 for each horror on Agnes Baker. So, you're going to hear a lot from me about how awesome this card is. I've not even played with it yet, and it's I don't even have it in my hands, and I know that this is going to be amazing. And mostly because I love cards that take a negative and turn it into a positive. There's always fun things to be done there, and the fact that you can kind of have push button It's kind of almost like retaliating, right? So the enemy hits you, you hit it right back. It's action advantage, it's stat advantage, it's direct damage, and it's awesome.
So horror is literally sanity damage, right? That's they instead of calling it losing sanity, it's you gain horror.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
I know a few people have kind of asked, like, do we know where that horror is coming from so far? And so far from what we know from the demo and elsewhere, the two main sources are enemies kind of deal it automatically when they attack you. So technically, an enemy could attack Agnes and then she deals the damage right back to it. And so if that's the last damage, then, you could just kill it outright right there. And then also we have seen
that saves you an action and it saves you pulling cards for a fight test. So good.
Yep. And we've also seen some from treacheries, and there's probably all kinds of other stuff in the encounter deck that do it. So maybe
it's
not
as
easy to control, but yeah, I'm sure you could do some fun stuff with it.
I mean, it's Lovecraft. We expect to be taking horror on a regular basis from various sources. So the fact that you can take that negative and turn it into a positive, I'm very, very excited to play with her. Purple factions for the win.
Yeah, what's interesting is she has a super high 5 willpower, but kind of that she only has 2 for the intellect and the combat, which seem very important, but I'm sure she'll have some ways of compensating for that.
Well, some that we're going to talk about pretty soon, I imagine.
Yep.
Okay, so I did want to slide that in there because that's not part of our kind of news spread that we're about to launch into. That was just kind of a random screen grab that someone got from the Marco Wargamer video. Definitely go check that out though. That was a good picnic. I think that's going to make people produce a lot of saliva.
Well, it was cool because that was the last investigator that we didn't know, and so thankfully he was kind enough to hold it in just the position that we could get someone could do a nice screen cap.
All right, so talking about news, guys, we've got some fun things here. Ian, do you want to lead us through the articles that have come out since the last time we recorded?
So there were 2 articles that we got. So the first one was called "Uncovering the Truth." And this was delving more into the campaign structure in the game, and a little bit more about how that works exactly. So basically, kind of what we've already talked about is that campaign mode is the default for this game, and is going to be kind of what most players are going to be playing. You can play standalone, but for the most part, if you want the best experience, you're going to be playing the campaign because then you get that kind of evolving character. So as far as what they talk about as far as what exactly that means, so we've talked about the leveling up component, but there's also this other aspect to campaigns, which is you actually get to make these kind of choose your own adventure decisions. And in the article, they say these decisions are made outside of gameplay. So separate from the game, whatever scenario you're playing, you're going to be asked to make these decisions.
I want my renegade interrupt. That's all I want.
Yeah, I'm sure the professor will be giving some lengthy explanation about the situation, and you just kick him out the window of the library or whatever. Were you saying something? So specifically what they mention, and this isn't really a spoiler because this has been mentioned in about 1 billion places by now, so I'll just say it. At the end of the first adventure, you have the choice of whether or not to burn your house down to the ground. And so again, you're not making a skill check to see whether you can set the fire appropriately or escape the fire. This is just a matter of, you're going to circle up as players and decide what you think is the best thing to do.
And it'll be interesting to see what effect that has. I guess we never got that far into that first scenario, so I guess we don't know what the climax is. Maybe you find something really terrible and you're going to want to burn it down. But I don't know, what could that have? Did more monsters spawn in later scenarios if you don't burn it?
Well, I think what they bring up in the article is that if you burn it down, it won't be a location in future scenarios. So I guess if you were to hypothetically speaking, now obviously I don't know, but if you were to clean the house out, quote unquote, and then it kind of becomes like a safe location later on. But if you're unable to clean it out in that first scenario, then your only option might be like, well, all right, forget it. We're just going to burn it down then. And then instead of having like a safe place to return to, then it's just a, whatever, open lot or whatever, or however the game would handle it. So that's, I guess, what I thought of when reading this article.
Yeah, Thomas Wolfe would be proud of that choice, I think.
Yeah,
you can't go home again.
The cool thing here is that this is a way that it does immediately differ from the Lord of the Rings campaign mode, which didn't have these kind of in-between scenario choices, really. I mean, there's some very small things, but, not worth mentioning, really. It's
basically,
kind of
you get to choose items, like in Lothlorien and things like that. It's not actually affecting the story itself, more just like what boons or items you get to carry along.
Right. I think the closest was like when you choose which person gets captured by the Uruk-hai and then they end up being a captive. But anyway, Lord of the Rings and drinking aside. So what they mention is that the gathering scenario can end in any of 4 possible outcomes. So there's 4 different ways this can end, somehow related to the burning of the house or possibly how you finish the game. And that's
spoiler
cool.
alert, none of them are happy endings.
You sit down with the ghouls and have a nice discussion of your differences.
Yes, the Arkham Accords of 1932 were signed in that grubby basement.
The cool thing is that people have been talking about the replay value, and if you're kind of a completionist and obsessive like I am, you'll want to see what all those outcomes are eventually. They talk a little bit. We've learned the name of the second core set scenario, which is the Midnight Masks, which has 2 outcomes. And the article mentions that you're going to keep track of these powerful cultists that you can defeat, but it's possible that some of them can get away, and it says you'll have to be ready to deal with all of those who get away.
Well, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I don't want it to make sense, but it makes sense. That's going to put a lot of pressure on you to kill, it sounds like, some pretty powerful enemies early on.
Yeah, the way they make it sound, it's almost like not so much that each scenario is self-contained in a way, but it is almost like the game and how well you do is really about the campaign. Like, you're not going to be ready to see the full story and how successful you were until the very end, because all these little things are going to be coming along and ambushing you based on what you did in the past.
Yeah, sounds pretty fun. So talking a little bit just farther down the page, I can't resist some of the things we get to do as we go along our merry way in our campaigns. We get, actually, is this the first example that we've seen of the level up mechanic? I can't remember if we saw the same card at a different level before.
I think one of the previous articles showed, I can't remember the name of it now, but blinding something, I think it had level.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
the blinding light spell.
Blinding light, duh.
Okay, well.
What could blind? Blinding fry pan? No.
Revved up like a deuce. So we've got another set of cards here. Nick, do you want to run through them?
Sure. Starting with the magnifying glass, which we talked about in our previous episode. The level 0 costs 1. But then when you level that up, when you get to level 1, it reduces its cost to 0. It's still fast. It still gives you the +1 intellect while investigating, but then it has that action where if there are no clues on your location, return magnifying glass to your hand. So we even discussed this too in our previous episode where, yeah, magnifying glass is good, but then it eats up that hand slot, and that's one less thing you can hold. Well, now, once you use it, if there's nothing left for you to find at this location, boop, pop it right back to your hand and open up that hand slot again, which I think is amazing. That seems like a really good level up. I don't know why you wouldn't do that one.
Oh, yeah.
That seems pretty decent. The fact that you can do all that nonsense without spending an action.
And that's no resources, yeah. And just for 1 experience point, that doesn't seem bad at all. Yeah, so that was kind of their example of cards that you can level up, but then they do mention that, which is probably what you were going to say, Nick, I think that there's some cards that they don't have a 0 level actually, and they only exist at the higher levels that you can kind of upgrade to.
So yeah, if you go further down the article there, we see a level 1 Guardian card, which is extra ammunition. The 2-cost supply card that's place 3 ammo tokens on a firearm asset controlled by an investigator at your location. So that one you can only get if you have level 1 Guardian. And then, as you progress through the scenarios, you can eventually get the level 4 Guardian card, which is Shotgun, which why you wouldn't want the Shotgun, I don't know. And that's a cost 5. Do you want me to go? I'll just keep going with this text here, although there's a lot of it.
Hey, you're doing good.
Thank you. So it's an item, weapon, firearm. It uses 2 ammo. And then it has action, spend 1 ammo, fight. You get +3 ass kicking for this attack. Instead of its standard damage, this attack deals 1 damage for each point you succeeded by, to a minimum of 1 to a maximum of 5. If you fail and would damage another investigator, this attack deals 1 damage for each point you fail by, again to a minimum of 1 to 5. So yeah, you want to be on the mark with this. But wow, what a card! Like that's pretty good.
That's a boomstick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if I can ever resist the shotgun in any game.
Right?
So you might
Survival
want to dodge
horror
out of the
shotgun
way.
is definitely the preferred firearm.
I forget
overall.
who said it, but there was some video game reviewer that actually measured action games by time to shotgun, as in how long it took you from you press start to get to their first shotgun. And like this, and with that whole like if you fail and would damage another investigator, like that opens up whole new levels to me. Like I didn't even know that was an option in this game, but now it's like, oh my god, I'm a liability to my team too. Like, I love it.
Yeah, I think if I remember what our demoer said at Gen Con, basically if you're firing at an enemy at your location that's engaged with another investigator and you miss, then you hit the other investigator.
Oh, that's great.
But this one ups the ante with you could hit them by a lot. Yeah.
This is going to produce some really, really fun stories.
Yeah, totally. When the other investigator's like, it'll be fine.
Tentacle.
I got this. Yep. Auto fail. That's definitely going to happen. I like this one. This seems like a boss killer type weapon where you only have 2 ammo. I mean, you can refill it with that extra ammunition, but you're probably going to be saving this for like that big boy ghoul priest we looked at last time, or whatever other bosses we get in the future, and just kind of load up on things you can pump up and just go for broke and try to get that maximum of 5, which would be huge.
So now, real quick, it says uses 2 ammo. Does that mean when you play it, it starts with 2 ammo on it?
Yeah.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think most of the... that's kind of how they do weapons. I think later on down the article I saw they did it with a spell, too. Basically how they're going to limit the use of these really powerful items is to give them limited tokens for use.
Yeah, we saw the flashlight in the demo, which was like 3, I think. So you run out of batteries in the flashlight eventually. For some reason, the idea of refilling these with extra ammunition is very exciting. I don't know why. It's such a simple thing.
It's this idea that like you got to go around, like you basically have to explore the map and find the resources and find the ammo to like that. I think it's so cool. It's such a gamey idea, but it's exciting.
That you didn't just go stock up and bring it in a backpack,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And just making you think about how are you going to spend your bullets with whatever weapon, like going back to Resident Evil, like that thing of, can I afford to spend this ammo, or do I just need to run away because I need to spend it somewhere else? So.
Or do I need to lure him into the corner so I can pistol whip him? Stupid zombie.
Yep.
So there's another one here in the... I can't remember if we talked about this last time. I think we may have. The 45 automatic.
I don't think we did.
Didn't? Okay, so this one's actually in the article. It's not laid out on the page. So it's another Guardian asset. 4 costs, level 0. It has 1 evade pip. Item, weapon, and firearm traded. Uses 4 ammo. And action, spend 1 ammo. Fight, you get +1 ass kick for this attack. This attack deals +1 damage, and it takes 1 hand slot. So that, I don't know, that seems like a pretty middle of the road, decent firearm, right? I imagine this is kind of the baseline.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
as it is for most games.
Yeah, that 4 cost seems
like
a little high to me, but then again, it's a level 0, so that means anybody with Guardian is able to use it. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, so moving along, I don't know.
Yeah, so from there it goes a little bit more into how trauma works in the campaign. So basically it says that if you're defeated in a scenario, that's not the end of the line for your investigator, which is good. So this isn't like an insta-death type thing. Instead, what happens, it says if you're defeated by physical damage, you get a point of physical trauma. If you lose by horror, taking away all your sanity, then you receive 1 mental trauma. And either way, what that trauma means is then that counts as a point of damage or horror that you suffer before the next scenario even starts. So that's basically, if you keep getting defeated, that's going to whittle away at you. And
you're going to start at a handicap.
Yep, and if you ever get to the point where your trauma is equal to your health or your mental trauma is equal to your sanity, then that's when your investigator is removed from the campaign.
At that point, you probably should have stopped playing a couple scenarios ago, though. Just gonna throw that out there.
So that seems like a cool balance between, if it was just like you die and that's it and you're out of the campaign, that would be a little too harsh if you put so much time into investigator and that doesn't give you much margin for error. But this way, it definitely impacts you. It's not going to be good and it can add up, but at least it gives you a chance to claw back.
Yeah, and I think it's a really cool difference from Lord of the Rings again, because in campaign mode there, if you lose a character or a hero specifically, they're dead. So the way that game works, you're almost kind of incentivized to just replay each scenario till you get the desired result. Whereas this, you still get a penalty for losing, but it might not be a big enough penalty that you want to go back and play the other one as opposed to just moving on. And obviously that makes way more story sense. So,
well, and how much would it suck too if you get together with your buddies and you bring your amazing Roland deck and you're like, this is my one deck. I don't need to bring anything else. It's just Roland. And then scenario 1 by some, token draw or whatever, Roland's down and out. And then it's like, well, I'll watch you guys do the next 2 scenarios, or I'll go play Overwatch, or I'll just go home, or whatever. That would suck. So it's really nice that it's not. I'm not a big fan of games that just straight up remove players from the game, like unless they're quick.
Agree.
So yeah, the fact that this is the campaign mode allows you to come back and try again and keep going. I think that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll make you toe that line and feel really nervous when you're starting with like 2 mental trauma later on in the campaign or whatever. And that might even affect like how you build your deck differently or what cards you switch out and all that. Right. So from there, the article kind of goes back to look at two of the investigators that were spoiled before. I can't remember exactly how people got them. I think they were shown in like a card fan somewhere. But anyway, here we get clear pictures of them. I'm going to take Skids O'Toole and read them because I have a feeling me and Skids are going to be spending a lot of time together soon. So,
Skids O'Toole.
Skids O'Toole is a rogue. That is the green class in this game. He has the subtitle of the ex-con. He has 2 willpower, 3 intellect, 3 combat, and 4 agility, and the criminal trait. And he has the this is the free action, I believe. During your turn, you can spend 2 resources, and you may take an additional action this turn, limit once per turn. And his Elder Sign effect is +2. If you succeed, gain 2 resources. And he has 8 health and 6 sanity.
So, kind of seems like rogues are going to be the rich faction, yeah?
They're going to want to be, for sure. Like, thank God they had the foresight to put the limit once per turn on here. Like, oof. We already talked about how...
They've learned things.
We already talked about how important actions are in this game. So the fact that we're getting an investigator in the core box, that's like, I'm going to take another action. Like, that's Oh, that's wow.
Mm-hmm. It's not super cost efficient because you can spend one action to get a resource. So there's kind of that very, I don't want to stretch that too far, but there's kind of a rough equivalency of one action for one resource. But I think it's important to keep in mind that we've seen some other ways to gain resources, and I'm sure that the rogues will have other ways to gain resources, and so skids can turn them into actions.
Well, yeah, and if you're pulling the Elder Sign and succeeding, you can, yeah, I mean, that's super win more, but it's also really good.
This is, since he's a rogue character too, this is when you sit down to play with a group, and the guy who brings his skids deck also is like, no, I got my own token bank, so I'll just use mine. And he's like, oh, another Elder Sign. Oh, another Elder Sign. It's like, this guy seems like a criminal.
Like that role-playing player who always covers their die or their d20 as they roll it, and then pick it up before anyone else can see it.
Examine the face close.
Naming no names.
Pick the die up and look at it really close in front of their face, like they have to read. Like, oh my! Yeah, I don't know anybody like
always
that.
Always those rogue players.
It's like, dude, we know that was a 6. Just live with it.
We've talked a lot about Lord of the Rings comparisons, but there's actually a lot of Netrunner comparisons in this game, and the rogues seem like they're kind of that criminal flavor of where they're doing stuff to try to get resources, which are going to help them basically meet that win condition, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. And right along that line, if you guys remember the Mississippi Manatee that we talked about last episode, you pop him down, and now all of a sudden you've got an extra action each turn to, bounce up your resources if you need it. And it seems just based on these 3 effects that I'm seeing that the rogues kind of look like they're going to be the rich faction, either rich in actual resources or rich in action economy. It seems.
As long as they can turn those actions into something useful, I think that's where they're really, because otherwise it's like, oh, you're getting actions, getting resources, but all you're doing is walking around, and you're not taking care of monsters, you're not getting clues. So as long as they're pulling their weight in other avenues of the game.
Yeah. So we got to look at our rogue friend Skids O'Toole, and they also go in depth into Daisy Walker, who is our Seeker hero. So Nick, did you want to read that one?
Sure. Daisy Walker, the Seeker. Her subtitle is the Librarian. She has 3 will, 5 intellect, 2 combat, or fight, or fist, and 2 agility. The Miskatonic trait. And her text is, you may take an additional action during your turn, which can only be used on tome action abilities. So she is the rogue who reads, basically, the reading rogue. And then her Elder Sign effect.
Reading rogue!
And then her Elder Sign effect is +0. If you succeed, draw 1 card for each tome you control. She has 5 health and 9 sanity. So she's the bookworm. And you're going to want to stack up tomes with her.
Well, as long as she gets that rolly cart, right?
Yeah, I think this is really good because we looked at the encyclopedia last episode, I believe. But the only thing that was kind of floating around in my mind is if you're going around using all these tome abilities, then you're not going to be able to use your actions for those core things you want to do, like investigating and moving. But Daisy seems tailor-made to kind of get around that concern.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think her secondary class is rogue? Because if she could also get the Mississippi Manatee...
Oh, God, I hope it isn't rogue. I hope, just because Manatee exists, I hope they... The fact that we're not even calling him the Louisiana Lion?
Leo DeLuca.
Leo DeLuca. The fact that he
is the actual name.
Yeah.
Like, I hope they never do the Seeker Rogue blend in a way that would just break the action. Like, oh my God, I can't imagine if she could get access to his ability.
That'd be pretty efficient, but I don't think it would make much sense flavor-wise. She's a librarian. That's like the consummate, like, that's what you call someone when they're not, sketchy in any way.
Not living on the wild side.
Yeah.
You call him a librarian?
Oh, I do.
You're such a librarian.
You librarian,
Get
Nick.
a load of this librarian over here, guys.
Yeah, go tell it to Dewey.
I do like go tell it to Dewey. That's it. That's good. Although Daisy Walker and the Mississippi Manatee does have the makings of a very good sitcom or buddy cop movie. I
think like a noir pulp novel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that would be great.
Oh, you mean like the game we're going to be playing in a month?
Like the game, like the game we're going to be playing in a month. You know, yeah.
Woohoo! So I thought what was really cool is with both Skids and Daisy, they've spoiled the specific weakness. Is it like a signature weak? Yeah, signature weakness. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually a character flaw or complication for each of them that we've seen. So for instance, Skids is up to his eyeballs in hospital debts, it seems. So it's a treachery, and again, these weaknesses go in your own deck, which I think is so freaking funny. So when you draw this from your deck, it acts like a treachery that you just drew from the encounter deck. So Revelation. So I'm sorry, this is a weakness, hospital debts, treachery, task traded. Revelation, put hospital debts into play in your threat area. Free action. Move one resource from your resource pool to hospital debts, limit twice per round. Enforced, when the game ends, if hospital debts has fewer than 6 resources on it, you earn 2 fewer experience for this scenario. That hurts.
Mm-hmm.
That hurts so much. Like, if the whole point of this game is to level up and progress, like, oh god, can you imagine accidentally drawing this on your last turn before everything is wrapping up and just being like, oh.
Well, and do we know, is there any like resource carryover from one scenario to the next? Or is that...
I don't know, but I don't think so.
I was going to say, this is a good way to kind of kneecap those people who are just going to, hoard resources in the first scenario, because it's like, this one's a little bit easier, so I'm just going to stack myself up for next scenario. But if that isn't the case, then yeah, this is just like bad news all the way around.
Yeah, so it's going to take you have to basically devote 3 turns to this. Luckily, it's a free action. It's not also killing your action economy.
Yeah.
I suppose you're just mailing the money away. But, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty flavorful. I like that.
Yeah, and it introduces a kind of interesting, like, personal goals element to this game, without necessarily making it, like a hidden trader mechanic or something like this. But I guess what I mean is that I could imagine a situation where I'm the Skids player and I'm like, I need to, play this card to get resources or go around gather resources somehow so I can pay this off because I really want my experience at the end of the scenario. And the other investigators are saying like, what the heck are you doing? You need to be helping out investigating or fighting this monster or whatever. And so there'll be a little bit of interesting tension there in a way that I think will be... Yeah, it'll be more, and I think it'll be in a way that's more fun than like annoying. So I think that's good.
So then I think Daisy's is way more interesting and fun to talk about. So we should definitely do that. Ian, I think. Oh wait, Nick, you're the one who thinks you're probably gonna go Seeker, right? So
that seems to be the class that I'm leaning towards. So Daisy's weakness is the Necronomicon. It is an asset. Oh yeah, and the subtitle John D translation. So we kind of talked about this a little bit before we recorded, but like the idea that there could be different versions of the Necronomicon just based on the translation, like, oh, I love that. I love that from a flavor and from a lore.
That's really
cool. So yeah, weakness traits are item and tome, and then it has revelation. Put the Necronomicon into play in your threat area with 3 horror on it. It cannot leave play while it has 1 or more horror on it. Treat each Elder Sign you reveal on a Chaos token as a tentacle. So already, like, that, like, yeah, wow. And then action. Move 1 horror from the Necronomicon to Daisy Walker. Then, if the Necronomicon has no horror on it, discard it. And then it takes up 1 hand slot.
Oh.
So
it's so flavorful.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's like must-read Necronomicon.
Must-read.
Gotta hurry up and read this book. And then the fact that it's like, okay, now you're dreading the Elder Sign as long as this card is in play. Like that one facet of like that safety net that you had, or that glimmer of hope. It's like, nope, it's gone now. Hope for a +1, loser. It's like, oh man.
Yep. And I'm only, like I said, I'm a little bit lighter on the lore side, but even from the few that I've caught up on since the game was announced, particularly in the Dunwich horror, like so many people mention the Necronomicon and having read it and how much they wish they hadn't, but everyone kind of seems to get drawn into it anyway. So yeah, flavorful as hell. Love this card. I mean, definitely don't want to see it when I'm playing Daisy, but it's just a flavor home run for sure.
Yeah, that's a tough one because it's soaking up the actions too, in addition to gaining horror. But
yes,
yeah, definitely nasty.
And it's almost too bad that she can't just toss it over to Agnes to read, because then Agnes could take the horror gladly and deal it out as damage to enemies. So
if only we could all be more like Agnes.
I know. What would Agnes do?
So at the end of this article, they pretty much wrap up by just kind of directly addressing the issue of replayability, which I think is interesting because that has been one of the topics of chatter in the Arkham community so far. And so they directly say, people are wondering how replayable it is, but the campaign play basically enhances the replayability rather than taking away from it. I think basically what they mean is that, obviously you can play the scenarios by themselves, but doing the campaign makes it more replayable because each campaign's going to have a different story of like what cards you include, how scarred they get by their adventures, and kind of these choices they make along the way.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to be more scars than anything else. Just knowing the source material, even as little as I do.
Yep, and at the very end, they just give people the opportunity to look at the campaign log, which doesn't really give you much information, but it's very cool to look at because it's stylized as like a old school files or something.
Yeah, it's even got the coffee stain on the on the napkin that's being drawn up on notes. I do like the everything to do with this game that I've seen visually is just on point.
Yeah, they're nailing theme like you wouldn't believe.
And like even the templating on the enemies, like for some reason the fact that they flip-flopped the text and the art, just it visually is so cool, because if the enemy is essentially kind of out on the board, like, and your stuff is in front of you, that basically pulls all the art to the center of the board, right? Because the enemies are kind of out in random. I don't know if this point actually holds, but I really like the frames on the enemies.
It's an interesting and unique way to do it that I don't think too many other card games have done it, where the art is actually at the bottom of the card. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So our second article was
so excited about
super excited. If we thought we were excited before, this took the excitement to a possibly unhealthy level.
Did anybody expect that we'd even see, this is nuts that we would get a deluxe expansion announcement before the game is even out. I can't even believe that we're already at this point. That's so cool.
Yeah, people were waiting for an article about rules or classes, whatever, and then they just dropped this bomb on us. It was here's this deluxe expansion. Yeah, so what we're talking about is an article called The Dunwich Legacy, which is announcing a deluxe expansion of the same name. The first deluxe expansion for this game, obviously. And this is going to be, the interesting thing is that this is actually following on the story, The Dunwich Horror by Lovecraft. And this is going to follow up on that story. That's why it's called The Legacy, taking place, according to the article, about a few months later, and kind of exploring the fallout from the events in that story. We're going to get a bunch of new cards. We're going to get 5 new investigators in here.
Which we assume means 1 for each class, right? Did they actually clarify? There's no way they do anything different.
It would be weird if suddenly you get 2 Seekers and no Guardian. That'd be a little. Although maybe if the expansion is themed that way, if the scenarios themselves are themed heavy for one class, or this is something that you're going to want this class for. But yeah, I think 1 of each class would make the most sense.
Especially since 5 is such an odd number to pick, if not.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes,
Unless they wanted to throw us off, Who knows?
Very possible. Very possible. They mentioned a couple locations that we're going to see. Miskatonic University, which of course features huge in a bunch of the games and Lovecraft stories and all over the place. And then also the Clover Club. So we're going to do a little bit of studying, a little bit of clubbing, which should be fun. And so we get our first little card fan here and our first look at an investigator from this expansion. So I'll let you take this since it's Mystic, Sean.
Oh, yeah. We have here Jim Culver, who is the musician. He has 4 willpower, 3 intellect, 3 ass kick, 2 runaway. Performer traded. His ability is treat the modifier on skull tokens you reveal as a 0.
Nice.
And anytime you reveal an Elder Sign token, you may choose to instead treat it as a skull token.
Nice.
And then his Elder Sign actual effect, if you choose not to treat it as a skull token, is +1. And then he has 7 health, 8 sanity. Which, keen-eyed observers, I suppose, will note that it seems like all the investigators that we have in the core set, their combined sanity and health is totaling 14. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yeah, I think that's correct.
So Jim's got 1 more than that for all that matters. That ability confuses me, though. Like, I have no bloody clue how good that is.
Well,
the cool thing is they are already pushing the boundaries of space on what investigators can do, so that's cool.
Yeah,
and it's I read it like we see what the Necronomicon does in that it turns your Elder Sign into an auto fail. So knowing that something like that already exists in the game, granted it's for a different character specifically, but I'm sure we're going to see stuff in the scenarios that will change what the tokens mean. Again, that's probably why they just have symbols on them rather than +1, +2, that sort of thing. So the fact that he is a built-in fail-safe for that, like I think he's gonna be a fairly consistent investigator, and that's awesome.
Yeah, that's probably safe to say. His stat line, he doesn't have like that big stat like in the 5s. He's got his 4 will, which seems to be, at least between the 2 we have, willpower seems to be the important stat for mystics. But yeah, so I mean, essentially that's every time you draw a skull, you get plus whatever the negative is. I mean, do you still trigger the effect on the skull?
That's a good question.
So like,
well,
what was that skull that we saw last time where it's -1 and if you fail, take a horror or something like that?
Yeah, this just says treat the modifier on skull. So I would read, like, if it were me playing this right now, I would say the numerical value of the skull token is at 0, but that caveat or that ability still exists.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll come down to parsing the exact meaning of the word modifier, which, yeah.
Well, he's no Agnes, but he'll do.
He's very intriguing. I like his flavor text. He talks about, no, not quiet at all. Dead folks get downright rambunctious when I play my horn.
Yeah.
And, dead folks, and he's playing on the skull token. Very cool connection there. I like it.
No, I'd never even thought about that. That is really cool.
Yeah. So, we'll have to see what his special item is, his weakness, and that'll kind of flesh him out some more, I think.
Well, it's gotta be, like, his trumpet, right? Look at that. He's holding it in the thing. He's a musician.
Now watch, it's actually his tie.
That would be amazing.
Jim's ghost companion.
Jim Culver's shoelace.
Oh my god. But yeah, no, I'm interested. Jim is actually one in Eldritch that I often pass up, even though he's kind of got that. He's got the stat line to do spells pretty well, but for some reason in Eldritch, I just kind of look at him and go, I'd rather play Diana again.
Yeah, your heart is elsewhere.
I like my sorceress queens. What can I say?
The other card we got in that same fan is a new Guardian card called Teamwork. This is an event for 0 cost. This is a level 0 card with a wild icon on it. It's a tactic, and it says investigators at your location may give or trade any number of item assets, ally assets, or resources among one another.
Wow.
So
yeah.
the existence of this card clarifies something that I was wondering, and that's that you can't do that by default. You need this card to do something like that. So I'm going to call it right now. If any weird busted combos come out of the game, this is going to be person of interest number 1.
Yeah, it does seem a little sketchy.
Yeah, because there's no limit on this. This is, you can all have a little summit and all the investigators meet and just trade like crazy.
Well, and that's just it. It's not like you can trade with one other investigator or anything, or you can give an item you have. It's anybody at this location. So that's like, and now not having played it and not having actually seen it in action, you begin to question like, okay, how often are investigators going to be at the same location? And how often is that going to be feasible? Mm-hmm. But if you
don't split up at horror movie, Nick. Well, that's just a terrible idea.
I was going to say, if you have this card in your hand, you're going to make sure that you're with at least one other person for a majority of the time.
Yeah, I guess there are the slots, so that'll limit the item and ally shenanigans a bit. I guess if anything goes crazy, it would be in the resources. Like, you could technically just funnel everyone's resources to one investigator to do something. I mean, we don't know what that is yet, but...
Well, and we were just kind of talking about how cool it would be, and it obviously maybe this one wouldn't work because I don't think you can trade the Necronomicon. But how cool would it be to give Agnes Daisy's Necronomicon, and all of a sudden this thing that is actively bad for Daisy, Agnes is like, oh, hey, this is a sweet read. So I mean, and that's just straight out of the core. So as the card pool grows, the potential for those kind of weird interactions is only going to grow. And I think that the development of this game, I assume, is going to be kind of keeping the classes separate, obviously, and developing the cool abilities to work mostly within that class. And then this basically allows us to cheat our way out of that. So, I don't know. I'm very excited to discover those combos, but I am calling it now that if there's weird jankery that breaks the game down the road, this is going to be a culprit.
Well, and another thing, too, that you got to think about is that at least with the card pool that what we've seen so far and what's available right now, or what will be available soon, is that teamwork almost seems more like it's going to be a catch-up card or something that's like, oh, you know, all right, you had a pretty bad last couple turns, I'm going to move to your location and I'll give you this, you know, the 45 or whatever, something that I don't need right now. So it seems like it's more of a way right now to kind of even the scales because, again, investigators are going to have those item slots. And when you build your deck, you're going to take those item slots into consideration. You're probably not going to build your deck going, well, someone will just teamwork me at 45 or someone will, you know. So it seems like it's going to be more of a catch-up thing. Like if I had to make a call right now, I'd say it's going to be more of a fail-safe than a break the game thing. But of course, you know, you could get someone who makes 2 decks and when you sit down to play, he's like, no, play this one, trust me, and then, you know, throws all this stuff your way.
Yeah, I'm sure if you want to...
I think the more likely scenario is that, here, play this one. Here, give that to me. And I'll take that too. And
yeah. No, you're going to do this action and this action. I'm going to... why don't you just go get a soda or something? I'm going to take over here for a little bit. I got this turn. I got it. You go.
Yeah, because I imagine everyone will kind of be building their investigator deck on their own, so it'll be rare cases where you have an item or ally you want to give to someone else and that they can actually use it and have the right class.
Yeah.
I guess you can do some crazy planning out together. I have a feeling resources are going to be where this card really comes in, where it's like, oh, you're one short of playing that key card, here you go. Or those like key neutral items or whatever, maybe those could get passed around, but yeah. But it does seem like, you know, if you're a Guardian and you're playing multiplayer, especially like 3 or 4 players, like you probably should throw one of these in your deck.
Yeah, definitely seems like a good idea.
Just in case.
And then the question comes up, do you think that the Rogue faction will get like a pickpocket card where it's like, take an item from an investigator on your, like, just yoink, no, this one's going to be mine. No, this one's mine. You don't worry about it. I hope not.
We can only hope.
No, I hope not. If I go to face...
Yeah, that would lead to some real-life ass-kicking.
I was saying, if I go to face the ghoul priest and my shotgun is gone, I'll be a little upset.
You should just be able to replace it with, like, a lint card or something, or a coal.
A cane.
He goes to whip it out, it's just an umbrella.
Yeah.
An IOU note.
Oh, jeez. Arkham Horror, the LCG, brought to you by Looney Tunes and Hanna-Barbera.
Totally. So moving on from that fan, we're getting 2 new scenarios in this expansion. So that answers the question of how many scenarios we're going to get in deluxe expansions, assuming that all future ones follow this model. This is different from Lord of the Rings, where we've gotten 3 quests each time, but here we're getting 2. The quests are extracurricular activity, which I would bet has to do with the university. And the house always wins, which I'm sure has to do with the club. And so in one of these, it mentions we're going to infiltrate the Clover Club and witness some shady goings-ons. And have our innocent little eyes ruined by what we witnessed there. And on the other hand, in the other scenario, we'll be walking through Miskatonic University, and, figuring out whatever is going on there.
Seems pretty cool. I also want to point out that this announcement does also answer a question that was hanging out there as to whether or not the core scenarios were self-contained or were going to bleed over into the Mythos packs that were presumed to follow it. But now that we know that we're not getting a Mythos pack right away, we're getting a deluxe, it seems like that is the case, that the core set is probably self-contained, and this kicks off its own campaign. With, I would assume, Mythos packs to follow. I can't remember if the article confirms that or not.
Yeah, it does. It says this is the introduction to the whole Dunwich Legacy campaign, which are going to be released in a cycle of Mythos packs. So it looks like the model will be deluxe expansion and then Mythos packs, which will continue that campaign.
Cool.
Am I the only one who kind of hopes that eventually they get to the point where they're like, okay, this is and just speculating here, but this is the Mountains of Madness deluxe expansion, and here are the Mythos packs, and then the next deluxe expansion is announced, and it's like Beyond the Mountains of Madness, and it's so then eventually we get like a 3 deluxe expansion and whatever that would be, 24 Mythos pack long campaign, where it's like, yes, like this is my weekend now. Like I think that would be pretty cool if they just keep. I mean, I want them.
That's longer than a weekend, my friend.
But it's like I want him to go everywhere and explore all the options, but at the same time, I kind of want him to just make the one just giant campaign.
Well, that will be interesting to see because thinking about Lord of the Rings again, continuing our drinking game here. Rest in peace, all those loyal listeners.
I was thinking you're drunk again.
I'm not drunk. You're drunk. Well, in Lord of the Rings, what we saw was that not so much in the earlier cycles, but as time went on, they've kind of had each cycle continue the same story. Like the conceit has been, oh, the adventurers went here, they went up to the north, and now the adventurers are going to go to the Grey Havens and sail around. So it'll be interesting to see whether we get this Dunwich Legacy, but then is the next campaign going to build on that same story, kind of like you're saying, Nick, or is it just going to totally go somewhere else, from there?
Yeah, I love that we have options for both. Like, I love that both could happen. They could do one or the other, and they would be equally awesome, equally exciting.
Yeah, definitely. So we have something very exciting from there, which is getting to look at another of the new investigators in the Dunwich Legacy. Whoop, whoop. So I don't remember where we landed on who was reading what. But Nick, why don't you go ahead and read the new Guardian investigator?
All right. Zoe Samaras, I'm guessing is how you say her last name. Guardian investigator, the chef as the subtitle. 4 will, 2 intellect, 4 fight, and 2 agility. She's a believer and a hunter. And that says a lot about her character. That's I love that character type. So she has a response? Is that what... I forget what the circle arrow is. Is that response? Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, I should just keep reading.
Or reaction or whatever the rulebook will actually call it.
So after you become engaged with an enemy, gain 1 resource. And then Elder Sign effect +1 if this skill test is successful during an attack that deals +1 damage. That attack deals +1 damage. And then 9 health and 6 sanity. So she's going to be another monster killer, which I think is pretty cool.
She is a tank. She's a tanky tank.
Yes, tanky McTankerson. So there is a very similar hero in Lord of the Rings, and I only bring this up because I think when that hero came out, basically whenever you engage an enemy, you gain a resource. It's basically a carbon copy of the text. I think people underestimated how good that was when you're planning to tank the enemies. And Moblung is that hero, and he is like a staple in his sphere now at this point, just for how good that is. So it's awesome that, Guardians, they seem to be like the ones that are going to be most apt to take on enemies proactively. So getting a resource for doing what you're doing anyway, it's okay.
So then the question comes up, do you think, and again this is speculative, do you think that the enemies, comparing this to Lord of the Rings, do you think that the enemies in Arkham Horror will be, as you would expect almost, that they would be considerably more dangerous than enemies in Lord of the Rings? Like in Lord of the Rings, like in the core set, you've got goblins and spiders and whatnot. But in Arkham Horror, you've got ghoul priests, and I'm sure eventually we're going to get like Dark Young and stuff. And that, I'm sure those will just be like commonplace enemies, you know what I mean? Like, so while that...
God, I hope
not. Like looking at that ability, like, yeah, that's great, but at the same time, it's like, how often do you want to engage these enemies? Like, I think if I had to guess, I would say that this is probably going to be more precarious too, though, when it comes to your character than Lord of the Rings was with Mablung plus his 2 friends.
Yeah. I definitely see what you're saying. It'll be interesting to see kind of where that mix lies, and it might vary from scenario to scenario, whether there's the same amount of enemies and they represent about the same amount of threat to your board state, or whether there's fewer enemies but they're way more impactful. And I think another thing that makes her really good is, if you remember, if you evade an enemy, you break the engagement. So if someone evades an enemy, then that goes back out, and you possibly have the opportunity to then just grab it.
So what you should do...
So you could even...
I was going to say, what you should do with Zoe, then, is just throw a bunch of agility buffs in her deck, and then break engagement, re-engage, break engagement, re-engage, break engagement, re-engage.
Well, I think at that point you could just click for resources, but...
Right. I'm glad we agree.
Yeah, that distinction is interesting, because obviously we don't know yet until we play the game, but from playing the demo, it did seem like the enemies are a bit meatier in the sense of they are beefier than Lord of the Rings, in the sense that in Lord of the Rings, how it works is there's not really like a limit to how much damage you can do, other than, you tap a bunch of characters, exhaust a bunch of characters, and if you have the characters available, they can kill someone. Here in this game, you're limited to that 1 damage for each attack, unless you have, obviously there's all these other items that pump that up, but it does kind of form a little bit of a limit to how quickly you can get rid of enemies, it seems like, at least. I do really love the art on this card, by the way, I have to say, which is, if you're not looking at it right now, if you're in the car or whatever, is Zoe... holding this big butcher knife. She's covered in blood, has a cross in her other hand, and she looks like she's ready to do some business there.
Looks like she's ready to start cooking.
Fun little bit of FFG trivia. This is actually a likeness of an FFG employee, or former. I can't remember if she's still with the company or not, but Zoe, I want to say, she was an art director.
Oh.
So I think one thing that happens with FFG is after you've been there for 5 years, kind of one of the perks is you get your likeness put into one of the games. So, yeah, fun little trivia.
How long do you have to do a podcast before you get your likeness in one of the cards?
I'll let you know when they contact me. I'm going on 3 years for Cardboard of the Rings. Brandon hasn't gotten anything. So talking about Zoe a little bit farther, they've also spoiled her card back that talks about her deck building requirements. And this is what's really interesting to me about her, because she deviates from what we've seen in the core set. So her deck size is 30, which is standard. Her deck building options, however, are a little bit out there. So Guardian cards, level 0 through 5, as expected. Neutral cards, 0 through 5, as expected. But instead of a second class, like all of the core investigators have, she gets up to 5 level 0 cards from any other class. So she has just kind of wild splash for those up to 5 cards in your deck to pull from anywhere. So, you know that whole point I made earlier about them designing investigators kind of based on their class? Yeah, that was just not a thing that actually happened.
Yeah, this is interesting because then you have a little bit of freedom, and it's limited because it's level 0, but literally look at every other class and decide what's going to work best with your deck building strategy.
Yeah, it's hard for me just on the eyeballing it to think which way is better, to kind of specialize in the main class and subclass, or get this like just main class and splash. My immediate hunch is this seems pretty good if you're going solo one investigator, that you can kind of grab those best cards from all the other classes. But I guess on the other hand, then after that you're just gonna be confined to this one class for the rest of the campaign. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see the full card pool to really decide, but that's a cool variation on the core investigators.
Yeah, and it's cool to see that they're already playing around with that. So, you know, talking about like Netrunner, I think we've mentioned is another game that kind of, you can see shades of the Netrunner deck building rules in this. And I think they didn't really play around with the deck building rules and the influence a whole lot with runners on the front. It took like a cycle or two before they started actually throwing those numbers around and kind of opening up the deck building space for different approaches. So it's kind of cool that we're seeing straight out of the gate here, the next new investigators, we're already seeing something different. So. And I also want to point out that her signature weakness is called Smite the Wicked, which, if that's not the name for a metal band's premiere album, I don't know what is.
Oh, yeah. I can't fully see the art on it, but it looks pretty intense.
Yeah, she like chopping the head off a snake monster?
Yeah.
Is that what's happening there?
Looks like a usual Tuesday evening for Zoe.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's like 5 o'clock, cook a delicious meal. 6 o'clock, decapitate snake monster.
7 o'clock, cook another delicious meal.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure if I want to go to a restaurant. I'm kind of iffy.
Order the special. Don't ask what's in it.
Yeah. The mystery meat is never good.
Shogoth bits.
Oh,
Get the
those won't stop though. Those will keep, like, you'll get the plate and they'll be wriggling around and reforming and eating everything else on your plate. And
so I think we've got 2 more spoilers in the article yet.
Yep, I'm gonna take this one because it's possibly one of my favorite cards they spoiled so far, and it's green.
Seems appropriate.
So this is Double or Nothing, and it has a nice picture of a roulette wheel on it. Very appropriate. This is a skill card, rogue, like I said, 1 wild icon, the fortune trait, and max 1 committed per skill test, which has seemed to be pretty common for a lot of these skill cards we've seen. And very interesting. So this one, you double the difficulty of the skill test. And why the heck would you want to do that? Because if this skill test is successful, you resolve the effects of the successful test twice. Wow. So literally double or nothing.
That's good. The nice thing is you don't resolve the fail effects twice.
yeah, that would
that would be true double
playable territory. Yeah.
you die again.
Yeah.
This
I just
seems-
noticed the art has little cockroaches on the edges of the roulette wheel, so that's not a roulette game I want to play.
No.
I think so. You can keep your rogue cards. You know.
I did not notice that at all. Now I'm kind of freaked out.
Well, I'm also on Spider Watch 2016, so
Oh,
I think I just noticed those little guys.
Also, I think that this could really do some things. Let's keep in mind that this doesn't have to be played on your skill check. So if you're playing with a Guardian pal who's toting that shotgun around, you could see some really crazy crap happen.
Yeah. I wonder if we don't know this yet, but I wonder if the other player commits a card to your skill test, do you have to accept it, or can they just play?
That's what I was just thinking. That's what I was just thinking. Like, why to me does it seem like the rogue class is going to be just
The
turn
troll
into the
class.
F with the other players? Yeah, totally. Like, no, trust me, man, you'll get it. Just trust me. Here you go, double or nothing, and then you fail, and it's just like, God.
And then there's a rogue card. When an investigator at your location fails a skill test, take one card from their hand.
Oh, God.
Oh, gee, I didn't
Body.
even know that was going to happen. I just...
Wait, how come that card is written on the back of a playing card with magic? Oh no, trust me, it's legit. Loot the body. I get your stuff.
So I could totally
You ask him to take it.
I could totally see playing this on like say you have like a super low shroud location, and then this could basically that it would double the difficulty, but if it's only like 1 or something, then that only turns it into 2, and then you up the pace of gathering clues, or like a low strength enemy or something like that. But yeah, definitely you need the right situation to play it. But I'm a big fan of gambling and kind of these all go for broke things. So yeah, it seems like
Then
that's
you're in the right place, me boy.
yep. Definitely looking forward to that Clover Club scenario.
It hit the craps tables. So the last spoiler we have in this article, I'm going to go ahead and usurp because it's a purple card. We have a mystic asset, the Rite of Seeking. Which is 4 cost, level 0. 1 intellect pip. It's a spell traded. It takes an arcane slot. Is that what that one is? The pentagram is arcane?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And has 3 uses, 3 charges. So, action, spend 1 charge, investigate. Investigate using willpower instead of intellect. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue at this location. If a skull, cultist, tablet, thingy, or
Suddenly we can't remember what this.
what one is that?
I don't know. I meant the royal we. Like,
Okay.
none of us know.
I'm just going to go ahead and say if one of the symbol tokens is revealed during this test, after this test resolves, lose all remaining actions and immediately end your turn.
Oh.
Oof.
So, like it. I really like it. I mean, talking about this on Agnes, you're investigating at 5 now, so all of a sudden you're turning
that is
something that
good.
she's normally not good at all into her best stat, and you get an additional clue out of it. But it probably needs to be the last action you do each turn.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. That's another Netrunner kind of connection. Sometimes it matters, like when you do a run in that game, like what action at the end or so. Yeah, definitely this is one you want to do in your last action, because if it fails, then you are going to lose all those sweet, sweet actions. But yeah, this definitely seems like a way of turning your investigator weakness into their strength in terms of investigating. So I like it.
It seems pretty good. Yeah. It is interesting that, the rest of the card seems to be pushing willpower over intellect, but the skill pip it has is an intellect pip. So, for whatever that's worth, I found that interesting. Oh God, guys, it's not October. How is it not October? It's just. And again, on that note, since I'll use that same transition, we're already recycling garbage in this show. Arkham Knights is looking to be awesome. Tom has confirmed that he's going to be able to make it at least for Saturday and Sunday. So looking forward to that. We've got a lot of people in the Discord channel have popped in and say, "Hey, I'm going to be there. I'm flying in." I didn't think Arkham Knights was something that people flew for, but there must be an ample amount of hype for this game that people are making the exception, or maybe they did fly it. I just didn't know about it, but very excited about that. We're talking about possibly doing meetups on Saturday night to go grab some beers and play the game. I mean, you can get beer at FFG, so mileage may vary, but so if you're coming, definitely let us know and pop into our Discord server. Again, the Mythos Busters Discord server. We've set up an Arkham Knights 2016 channel that anyone who's curious enough would like to come and use to coordinate games and chat about the event. Otherwise, very excited about it.
Very jealous still.
I know. I'm sorry. If we could send you like an Ian-sized, return to sender package and just do like COD, we would get you here. But to my knowledge, there's no such service yet.
Yeah, I'll just be doing some gate opening rituals in my room. I'm sure nothing will go awry with that.
All right, boys. So that's the news, and holy cow, that got us through a fair amount of the episode. We've already passed the hour mark.
Oh.
So Nick, I know we were planning on doing the lore piece this episode, but since we had such a bevy of news, I'm actually going to think that we should probably bump this to the next episode so we don't go over long on this one.
Totally.
Okay.
Yep. I keep hoping that we'll go a week where we only get one release article and maybe like one spoiled card, so it's like we can talk about everything else because the community has been wanting us to talk about lore. And I know that we want to talk about other Arkham games a little bit more and kind of compare and contrast and everything. But I think we'll have the opportunity for that probably in July of 2017. Maybe?
Yeah, when the when the marketing push isn't almost oppressively aggressive.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I'm loving it, but there's already lots to talk about. So look forward to that next time. I think for this episode, that gives us a nice little transition into Tentacle Time.
Everybody's favorite time.
You and I did lots of things last weekend. You should talk about some of them.
Oh my gosh, I have three big things I want to talk about for Tentacle Time. I had a list, I had a legit list that I was like, I can't go overboard, so let's limit it to three. I'll talk about one from this last weekend, and that was, I think, so we got together and we hung out, Sean and I, plus another group of friends. We do it every few months, and we play tabletop games, obviously. And what we did is we went to the FFG Event Center, and everybody picked up one thing or another. And I got something that I'd never heard of that a friend of mine pointed out to me. And he's like, this sounds fun, try it. And I'm looking at the box, and I'm like, it doesn't show any components. It doesn't talk about gameplay. All it talks about is the theme. And the name of the game
I think it bears mentioning that one of our shared favorite movies is John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yes. And I'm always looking for a good tabletop game that emulates that. I got Panic Station a few years ago, which is fun, but it's janky. It's fun, but the rules aren't fair. Anyway, this game is called Escape from Aliens in Outer Space. So it tells you exactly what it's about. It's awesome, yeah. And
clear labeling.
Yeah. I open up the box in the car on the way home, and I'm going through this stuff, and I'm expecting to see a board and tokens and cards and dice and stuff you get from a board game. But I open it up, and
It seemed almost like a hidden identity social deception kind of game, because that's what you think of when you think of The Thing. So I think that was my impression of what you thought it was when you got it.
Well, I expected like a board game or whatever, but I opened it up and I didn't expect to see 8 spiral bound dry erase notepads and then a stack of 80 cards and then a rule pamphlet that was literally 3 pages long. And I'm like, and I opened up the box and my immediate thought was, what did I just purchase?
Your face fell. I felt so bad for you in the car. I'm like, oh man. And I'm trying to impulse buy, and there's so much regret happening right now.
And I wanted to be positive, so I'm like, oh, it looks like they do this, and it looks like instead of a board, each player has their own map, and everybody's got to make notes. And I'm thinking nobody's going to want to play this with me. I'm the only super hard strategist type player out of this group. that like really gets into this stuff. Like everybody likes it to a different degree, but I'm the only one who's like, yeah, let's play a super strategy tactical game. So then we get back, and hours later we're playing.
I'm
other
down
stuff.
for them, but I have to really be into the theme to sit for that long.
Yeah. Well, to make a long story short, too late. It was I think we can safe to say it was probably the star of the weekend. Like that game was phenomenal.
It was definitely the surprise hit of the weekend.
Oh my god! And then I taught it to my wife a couple nights ago, and she even liked it. And she's she's easily intimidated by games. Like she plays a lot of them, but she's also like, if there's a lot of components, she's like, I don't know. This looks like it's gonna be an evening, you know. So
she can climb the wall, but sometimes she'd just rather not.
Exactly. Yeah, she'd rather just find the door through it. But this game, it's so great, and it was awesome. I love it. So the next chance I get to play, I'll bring it with to Arkham Knights, and we can definitely sit down and play an 8-player game of it. See what it's like.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
The other two things I want to talk about.
So just to talk about it real quick, it's a hidden movement game. It's to me, it's like if Resistance had a love baby with Battleship and put it on some really awesome maps.
Yeah. Basically, what you do is each turn is you write down secretly the space on the map that you're moving to. Everybody sees the same map, and then you draw a card.
Yeah, there's no central board is what's cool. It's just like Battleship, where everyone's looking at their own node, their own map, and you're making dry erase notes with a marker based on your movement, based on where you think your opponents are at. God, I'm really bad at it, but it was a lot of fun.
Oh, I know. And then when you get there, you draw a card, and then you announce. I didn't mean I know you're bad at it. I'm bad at it too. I didn't mean to say that, Sean. So I apologize for that. But anyway, let's just go
win a single game, so it's pretty empirical.
But you draw a card, and then you basically announce whatever that card says you announce. So you either are truthful and say you're in this location, you lie and say you're in a different location, or you just say that there's no noise, nobody knows where anybody is. So it's all about bluffing and hidden movement and everything. The other two things that I wanted to talk about real quick, one of them is I just finished up work on a solo podcast that I've been doing for about the last month. As I mentioned in the first episode, I'm a self-published author, and I do a lot of science fiction and suspense and a little bit of horror. So I did a podcast that's all about me narrating my own books as audiobooks. I always wanted to produce audiobooks because it's another audience that I haven't reached out to yet. I didn't know how to do it. And I don't have the money to produce an audiobook because that's expensive. So I did a podcast. And I'm like, they'll get a chapter every week. Maybe the next one I'll do 2 chapters every week. I don't know. We'll see. But this first book is wrapping up. The podcast is called Enter the Novelcast. You can find it on iTunes. You can find it on my website, nicholascorey.com. So I'll just plug that real quick. And then the last thing I want to talk about, I'm super excited for this, is in November. The first weekend of November, I'm getting together with some friends. Sadly, Sean can't make it, but it's the Extra Life Gaming for Charity National Game Day, basically, is that day. So we do a 24-hour gaming marathon to raise money for children's hospitals around the United States. So I'm really excited to do that and get together. You can find information about that on my website as well, nicholascorey.com. And if you feel so inclined, maybe donate $1 or $2. 100% of all donations go to the children's hospitals, so it's all going to a good cause. I'll be streaming Overwatch for science, for medical science. I'll be streaming Overwatch that day. We'll be playing tabletop RPGs. We'll be playing card and board games, and we'll probably even get a game or 2 in of Arkham Horror LCG. I am sure. So
nice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm going to be at Worlds at FFG's World Championship weekend. They happen to line up on the same one. But I might be able to hop on for a few games of Overwatch if that hits the right time.
Definitely, yeah. And I'm even debating because normally this is also the same weekend as BlizzCon, and I normally buy a virtual ticket to BlizzCon and then park myself on the couch and watch 16 hours of professional StarCraft play. I'm debating if I still want to buy that virtual ticket for BlizzCon this year, just simply because I'm not going to... I know I can stream the stuff for 2 weeks afterwards, but I don't know if it's going to be worth it not doing it live. It's not quite the same feeling.
Yeah. Totally. Well, cool. And Nick, so if anyone was interested in checking out some of the stuff that you've published, where would they find such things?
The best place to go is my personal website. Again, Nicholas Corey. That's Corey, Kory.com. That's the easiest and most straightforward way to find it. However, I do have stuff on Amazon, Smashwords, Kobo, Google Books, so you can find that stuff on there too. But yeah, I would direct you to my website. That's the best way to do it.
Cool. Awesome. Ian, what's grabbing you?
Well, my time has been a little taken away from fun pursuits the past 2 weeks, unfortunately. But when I did find some time, there were a couple things. My appetite for anything slightly Cthulhu and kind of Arkham Files related has been really high leading up to this game. So I've been searching for any fixes. So a couple of those fixes were, one, the Elder Sign app, which is kind of the digital version of the Elder Sign game. I've had it on my phone and kind of iPad for a long time, but I haven't played it in a while. So I cracked that one open again, and have been having fun with that. There are some differences from the board game, which I haven't actually played, but I was curious to see what those differences were, so I looked them up. But yeah, it's different from the other games, the other Arkham File games, in that it's essentially like a push your luck kind of dice rolling game, where you have to meet certain icons on the dice for each adventure you're going against, and the adventures are these little cards you're facing, and each one gives you certain rewards. And basically the goal is to collect enough Elder Signs to lock away whatever ancient one you're facing, and then conversely the ancient one can, as is typical with these games, is slowly awakening throughout the course. So very different. It's not necessarily like, I don't know if I would pick up the board game because I have enough other kind of Cthulhu related board game stuff, and more is on the way. But as an app, it's kind of a fun like diversion when I have a few minutes or whatever to play that and get my fix of that world. Other than that, I only have the Eldritch Horror board game in one of the expansions, the Forsaken Lore. So I wanted to start collecting the other ones. I recently got the Pyramids expansion. Haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, but it looks really cool. I love the kind of like Egyptian pharaoh mummy theme, and it seems like it adds some cool stuff to the base game of Eldritch. So pretty soon I'm looking forward to trying that on, taking on the Dark Pharaoh Ancient one, and that little Egypt sideboard. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Nice. I need to get that Pyramids expansion too.
Yeah. It was a tough decision because I was deciding between that one and Mountains of Madness, and I like that theme as well.
Mountains of Madness is the best, man, but that would... Oh, man.
You just set off the Nick siren.
I was, for a minute there, I myself was in that position, holding like Pyramids in one hand and Antarctica in the other, and being like, I guess I'm gonna have to get both, like, oh my god.
Yeah, I do plan on getting Mountains of Madness like very, very soon, so it's not that huge a decision, but a few people kind of pointed me in the way of the Pyramids and that particular ancient one, so I made that decision. But yeah, looking forward to the Mountains of Madness one as well.
The original Brendan Fraser, it's original, it was totally a remake of a remake, but the original Brendan Fraser Mummy is one of my favorite guilty pleasure movies. God, I love that movie so much. So the whole setting and kind of the mummies coming alive and that whole vibe is just totally something I dig. So I really need to grab that expansion. And
one of my key memories from that whole franchise was I can't remember what number it was that had the rock in it. Oh, that was the Scorpion King, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the scene that sticks
I'm not going to advocate any mummy movie beyond the first.
Oh, you totally should watch them just for the pure entertainment value.
Oh, I've seen them. I'm just not going to champion them.
I'm just going to jump off the podcast
the scene
now.
that sticks out in my mind is the Rock eventually, I can't remember the plot for the life of me, but he turns into some scorpion creature, and then he does the Rock eyebrow and that scorpion monster.
Yes.
Quality entertainment.
The choice to make him CG at the end of that movie, like, I don't understand how no one went, But anyway, yeah, I need to get that Pyramids expansion because I've been...
Oh, I was just going to say that moment in The Mummy where he turns into the Scorpion, that got him the classic Dwayne Johnson film vehicle, The Scorpion King, later. So, like, nothing bad or, like, only good came from it, obviously. I'm just going to jump off the podcast now.
Very true.
Yeah, I had this really random dream the other night about them making a new Money movie with like Vin Diesel and someone else. I don't know if that was a result of me buying the Pyramids expansion.
Were we
or what.
sharing brains that night? That's a recurring dream for me.
I have that written in my notes on this book here. Guys, is this like a Lovecraft experience? Am I like influenced? Oh my god.
Take two horror.
No.
We need Tom to hook us up with connections so we can get this movie made.
Yes. So for my part, I have been playing a little bit of Eldritch here and there. I think I've gotten in one or two more games since the last time we recorded. That's pretty much how I've been doing my Lovecraft nicotine patching. I'm also about 3/4 of the way through At the Mountains of Madness, which I know, Nick, you've always raved about that one as probably one of your favorite Lovecrafts, and I know you're not the only one that I've heard say that. It's pretty solid. I'm not going to lie. I'm enjoying it. I think it's pretty funny that Lovecraft sometimes does kind of the cop-out of like, oh, this monster was too hideous to behold or beyond description or blah, 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 and kind of leaves it really vague like that. But then at the same time, at the Mountains of Madness, he describes in like forensic detail the Elder Things for about 3 or 4 pages. And I'm like, dude, pick a lane.
Yeah, like I really enjoy Lovecraft's ideas, and I really enjoy like the stories that he tries to tell, but the way he tells them sometimes, like, not my favorite way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely got his own
agree.
style.
Yeah. He definitely has such cool worlds and story ideas, but then sometimes his actual writing is not my favorite, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Tolkien most of the time. Ooh, shots fired. I know I'm going to get flamed for that.
I've always said that about both Lovecraft and Tolkien, so yeah, I agree with you.
He's got moments of... they both have moments of brilliance, but there are times where it's just like, did we need to know how many veins were on the leaf of the tree that sits atop the waterfall where Faramir's, rangers were camped out? I think that's unnecessary information. And I think, obviously playing a lot of Overwatch, and I finally, guys, this is the first weekend where I've not gone anywhere, I've not done anything, and I want to say about all summer, I actually played Lord of the Rings for the first time since Gen Con by myself.
Wow.
Nice.
So I got in 5 games this weekend, really digging the latest slew of quests. The Flame of the West box, which covers book 1 of Return of the King, is uber solid.
Mm-hmm.
And just a really good time to be playing that game too. So.
I think that this last weekend was the first gaming weekend that we did, Sean, that we didn't play Lord of the Rings. That's crazy.
I was a little sad about it, but I never want to push it because I'm the only one who actually collects it. So, right. But the Escape from Aliens from Outer Space took. It's normally a Sunday morning game. That's when Lord of the Rings has traditionally been played at our weekends, and we were all making noise in silent sectors in Escape from Aliens in Outer Space on Sunday. So it was all right. We'll get it next time.
Yeah, I'm just slightly scared because the month of October is going to be obscene in terms of taking my time, because Arkham is coming out presumably for general release, and then Civilization 6, which I'm a huge fan of that series, is coming out. So yeah, I'm pretty much going to have to lock myself in a bomb shelter, and that'll be it for me.
Yeah, and let's talk for a second about how, across at least the games that I pay attention to, FFG's release schedule is remarkably ambitious for Q4 right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, Arkham Horror is slated for Q4. The next Lord of the Rings Deluxe is scheduled for Q4. I'm pretty sure the 2 adventure packs that they've announced for Lord of the Rings also slated for Q4. And I don't think we covered it in the article, but didn't I see that Dunwich Legacy is slated for Q4 as well?
Yep, it is, yeah.
So that's a lot of things.
But
there's so many hours in the day.
You got to remember, too, though, that the Games Workshop license is going away, so they're freeing up some space.
Oh, yeah. That's true. That was another big announcement that came out since the last time we recorded, that Games Workshop and FFG are taking their respective balls and going home. So that will be interesting. I suppose that really does clear up a lot of bandwidth, but they're riding the Star Wars pony pretty hard. Yeah. Destiny is another game that I'm really keeping an eye on. I played it at Gen Con, and I liked it way more than I wanted to because I didn't need it in my life.
Wait,
But Star Wars is my biggest. Yep.
Like, I'm unfamiliar. Force and Destiny, the RPG, or...
No, it's Star Wars Destiny. So it's actually a card and dice game. I want to say in the vein of Dice Masters, but I think the game, even only the 2 demos that I played at Gen Con, the game to me impressed me way more than Dice Masters ever did. But it's like that. It's kind of anachronistic, so it's got characters from all around the saga. So you could be fighting Rey against Count Dooku and stuff like that. So it's not solving the issue that I had with Star Wars LCG, that it's maybe a little too abstract or whatever, because it's even more so if you're a lore nerd. But the game is really solid. It's a dice game with a deck building element. It's fast. Like, I'm pretty sure I can teach this to my 9-year-old and play with her, and she'll be excited to take me down with Kylo Ren while I flail around with Rey. So yeah, and that is also Q4. So God, I think I need to start saving now. Q4 FFG savings plan needs to be a thing.
Yeah, money and time and all that will be a bit of an issue, but it's a good problem to have. The only bit of news that the question mark we don't know is there's been this kind of shipping issue where one of the biggest shipping companies in the world, this Korean shipping company, went bankrupt, and apparently their ships are kind of just stranded because no port wants to accept them, because then the port won't get any money from them. So there's no concrete info out there about how that affects any of FFG releases. I have heard kind of that, and I'm not 100% on this, that like Game of Thrones and I forgot one of the other LCGs has been affected by this so far, that the releases are pushed out, but haven't heard anything about Lord of the Rings or Arkham. And recently, a few days ago on the FFG Instagram, they basically just straight up said, "Oh, Arkham, which is coming out next month, which is October." So, yeah, I think we're safe on that front. It seems like, at least.
Hoping.
If it were on one of those ships, I wonder how much it would cost to hire a guy with a boat at the coast to go out there and just get my copy for me.
Yeah.
Run the boat into Cthulhu along the way. Yeah, so looking forward to Q4, like I said. So it sounds like we're going to talk lore next time, along with any articles that come out. So look forward to that, guys. Any parting shots on the way out, Nick?
Not that I can think of. Just already excited to record again.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll be able to get Tom on next time. God, I felt so bad because we had this all planned out, and then at the last minute, his internet goes out and his drivers.
Literally at the last minute, too. So I hope he gets everything worked out.
So everyone, if you missed Tom, let us know in the Facebook comments or on the website. Let's give Tom some love, because he was bumming out that he had to miss this tonight. Ian, anything from you?
Nothing special, just encouraging people to join our Discord, because you can chat with us and all these cool community people directly. It's already becoming a great place to chat about the game, and if you have any suggestions or things you want us to talk about, that's a good place where you'll make sure we see it right away or close to right away. So yeah.
Absolutely, it's such a cool communication app. Like, it's replaced most other community spots that I frequent. Like, I still go out to the subreddit and the BGG page, but I'm not very active there. I lurk more often. God, I love Discord so much. All right, well, I think that wraps it up. So thank you guys for joining us for episode 3 of Mythos Busters. We will see you next time.